Once you've learned your major scales, the next thing you want to do is learn all the other scales, which is easier than you think because you can base these all on the major scales. There are two ways of doing this. One is called relative. Relative logic means simply taking the notes of a scale and calling a different note the root. The most obvious version of this is the relative minor. Here's a particularly easy way of doing it. We're going to play, once again, our C major scale in 5th position. However, if we had played these notes starting instead on the A, the 6th note of C, we would end up with a different scale. In this case, the A natural minor scale. Sometimes called the A Aeolian mode. It's that easy. And obviously, we could have done this on any of the 5 fingerings of a major scale. In fact, we could have taken any of our major scale fingerings and turn them into the relative minor simply by starting on that 6th note. Now, once you set a particular scale, another way of changing is to do parallel. And parallel simply means taking the same root and changing one of the notes. This is what happens when you go from natural minor to harmonic minor. What you do is you raise the 7th. How do you do this on the guitar? Well, it's simple. First of all, you have to keep track of your scale tones. Watch. This is the root now, so we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's our raised 7th. We have to do it in this upper octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's our raised 7th. If we raise our 7th, and we'll add the raised 7th down here on the lower string, we end up with a fingering of A harmonic minor. It should be obvious that you could have done this from any of the natural minor fingerings that you derived from any of the major fingerings. The logic for this is really very easy. Let's apply this to a couple of the scales that jazz players like to use. We're going to go down to 3rd position, and what we'll do is we'll work on a G Mixolydian mode. There are 2 ways of looking at this. First of all, you could start again with C major scale, and this time we're going to call G the root. G is the 5th note of C. The Mixolydian mode is built off of the 5th degree of a major scale. And again, by simply starting on a different note, we end up with a fingering of a G Mixolydian mode. Now, if you look closely at this, you may notice that this is very similar to the good old G major scale. It's fairly close. Here's G major scale in this position. Another way of looking at the same scale is a parallel logic, in this case of a G major scale with a flat 7th. Watch, here's G major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's our 7th, which will flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which will flat. And of course, what we end up with is we end up with the same Mixolydian fingering approached from a somewhat different way. My suggestion to students is to work on both ways because the more different ways you approach a musical task, the better you'll be able to understand it. Let's do this once more with a Dorian mode. Again, another scale very, very common in jazz. This time we're going to go up to the 10th fret. This was our D-shaped C major scale. Now, the Dorian mode is built off the 2nd note of the major scale. The 2nd note, conveniently enough, is this low D. So we'll take all the notes of a C major scale, but this time we started on D, and we end up with a fingering of a Dorian mode. You may notice that the Dorian mode sounds very similar to the natural minor scale we played a second ago. Watch, here's D natural minor. Another way of thinking of D Dorian is as a natural minor with a raised 6. Now watch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, raise it, crossing a string. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, raise it a half step. Again, we come up with the same fingering for a D Dorian mode from 2 different ways, either as C major scale starting on D, or as D natural minor raising the 6th. Both these ways are logical, and both of them help you understand how these scales are derived from our original major scales. Let me give you guys a couple of tips about practicing scales. First of all, always practice with a metronome, and practice in different subdivisions and make sure that you're practicing slowly, which is very important. I'll even practice scales in half notes or whole notes. Here's whole notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, half notes. 1, 2, 3, quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, and 16 notes. But only when you're ready. Make sure that you're always working on good tone and good rhythm in a nice relaxed hand position when you're practicing your scales. Make sure that you practice everything everywhere, and also make sure that you spend some time not just learning the mechanics of the scales, but improvising with it and getting creative and having fun with them and coming up with melodies and ideas so that you have fun with the things that you're practicing hard on.